So Bitcoin just hit its new yearly high. We're right back at the 12K level, and you guys know what happens next. Your friend's going to start asking you if you should buy Bitcoin. CNBC is going to start talking about it. The mainstream media is either going to call it a scam or they're going to say it's going to 100K. So I figured it was the best time to upload this clip. I spoke with Anthony Pompliano at the beginning of the year, and we had one of the most epic conversations about why Bitcoin will go mainstream, why it's so impactful for young investors, and all the investment characteristics that make it one of the most attractive investments of our lifetimes for institutional investors as well. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this clip. It has a lot packed into it. Hit subscribe if you are digging the content right down below. Smash a like. Let's get this one to 200 likes. You guys have been helping out with that. And also, one more thing before we get to the video. Check out crypto.com. If you already have Bitcoin or you have conviction in Bitcoin, or if you're just new here, you can DCA into Bitcoin using the app, meaning you can buy small amounts at a time. It's one of the easiest ways to invest. Download the app right down below. It works on your iPhone and Android. All right, let's get to the video. I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. This is the ultimate bull case for Bitcoin, one of the clearest explanations I've ever heard. So share this one with your friends, post it on Facebook, post it wherever you need to, and thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the clip. Let's talk about Bitcoin. One piece that I've been thinking about all week is Jill Carlson's blog. Did you see that? Right? Bitcoin is not ready for the mainstream, or it's not made for the mainstream. I don't know what the headline was, but the article was very well written. And it's gotten some pushback, especially from the ETH community, talking about, well, no, it's not only used for those censored, and censored doesn't necessarily mean illegal. And illegal also doesn't necessarily mean bad. What are your thoughts, though? You speak with a lot of institutional investors and pitch it, giving it these kind of a narrative of a way that institutional investors can think about it, either being a store of value, either being a digital gold, right? And that's sometimes kind of maybe pitching it as something that it's maybe not, right? We talk a lot about mainstream adoption and institutions coming. What do you think about that thesis that it's not made for the mainstream and that doesn't matter?
I think that's wrong. And again, Jill is smarter than me, smarter than 99% of the people who are looking at this stuff. But the two core components that I think get forgotten are, one, I personally believe that every institutional investor that has looked at Bitcoin and doesn't put it in their portfolio is violating their fiduciary duty, right? And I've been saying that for a long time. And the reason is their job is to find risk-adjusted returns, the best risk-adjusted returns. And if you believe modern portfolio theory, if you take this asset and you put it in your portfolio, you reduce the overall risk of your portfolio, and you have a material impact on the upside of the portfolio. And so you can have all the qualitative arguments that you want. The quantitative argument is pure facts, and those facts refute the idea that they shouldn't put Bitcoin in their portfolio.
Sure, and I don't think those are mutually exclusive, though. So I think quantitatively, yes, I agree, and that makes a lot of sense. But I'm saying qualitatively, primarily, it's used for censorship resistance. Those are the transactions that matter. If it's not, use something else. Use Visa. Do you disagree with that?
No, because that's a use case right there that every institution in the world should put it in their portfolio because it's non-correlated.
Okay. So use case as an investment.
But that is a use case.
Just as an investment vehicle.
That is one use case, right?
Yeah, sure.
So there we have every single major institution. Like, people forget there are 2 U.S. public pensions that have exposure to Bitcoin. Think about that. That position this year is up very big, right? And when you look at it, the data is so overwhelming. Over the last 5 years, if you had a 60-40 global portfolio, you returned about 7.2%. If you'd taken 0.5% from stocks, 0.5% from bonds, and put it into Bitcoin, you would have gone from 7.2% to 9.2%. So 200 basis point upside. If that 1% position in Bitcoin had gone to zero, you lost all your money, you'd gone from 7.2 to 7%. 20 basis point downside. So 10 to 1 upside to downside. And the fact that it's non-correlated, right, ends up reducing the overall risk of the portfolio. Like, people always focus on the qualitative. No one uses it, blah, 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 whatever. It's one of the top 15 most popular currencies in the world. On-chain transaction volume last year was more transaction volume than Venmo, PayPal, or Apple Pay. It's available in more countries, and people don't like to hear this in the U.S., but we're spoiled. The U.S. dollar works. But my favorite part to bring people up with is they say, oh, no one buys it with coffee. I just went and bought coffee. I didn't use dollars. I used credit. Most of the coffee that's bought at Starbucks is used with credit. It's not dollars. When do I settle that transaction? When I pay off my credit card at the end of the month. Right? So people think, oh, I'm using dollars. No, you're not. You're using credit. And the reason you use the credit is because the dollars are actually harder to use than the credit. right? And if you think of it in layers, there's gold and there's paper claim on gold and there's electronic money, then there's credit built, etc. Well, that took a lot of time to build. Same thing's going to happen with Bitcoin. And so I think that it's just the data is so overwhelming in terms of the usage, the adoption, etc., that a use case is censorship resistance. But if you are sitting in a country where you can't get a bank account, Bitcoin provides access. And so access is just as important as censorship resistance. And I think a lot of people don't understand how important these assets are, right? If you go and you ask somebody like a Catherine Coley, how'd she get into Bitcoin? It was because she was trying to send money from Hong Kong, right? Like, again, has nothing to do with censorship. It has to do with the legacy banking system sucks.
Well, partially. I mean, she was trying to get money out of there. That's a transaction that isn't necessarily illegal, but was kind of censored. Isn't it hard to get money out of Hong Kong?
Yeah, but that's not censorship, right? That's just that they make you jump through a bunch of hoops and it's expensive.
Yeah.
Right? Censorship.
Bypassing. Yeah.
Censorship is I can't send money to Iran.
I
want to send money to Iran, so I'm going to send it with Bitcoin.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
That's part of what I think people don't realize. Right here in the U.S. Right? There's a number of people that I've sent Bitcoin to over the last year. Right? Why? It was Saturday or Sunday. Banks are closed. Right? Like, it's pretty simple stuff. But again, to say that to try to put an asset in a binary world if it's only for this one thing, I think is super short-sighted.
I don't think she was doing that, and I hope Jill didn't take it as that. But I think main use case is kind of what she was saying, and that she didn't want to live in a world where it was mainstream because primarily its centrable transactions are that's what it's used for. Right?
Wait, what? Why is she saying she doesn't want to live in that world?
Because that would be a pretty terrible world to live in. Imagine if things were that restrictive, right, and we had to rely on a digital cash that much. Right, if we were that under control, pretty much.
You already are.
Yeah, but
not really. No, you absolutely are.
Well, we're spoiled in the U.S., but most of the world, I think, is still in a pretty good place.
You live in a surveillance state.
Sure.
Right? Like Warren Davidson, congressman out of Ohio, right? I just interviewed him, and he basically was like, look, we basically have empowered the banks to spy on their customers. Every financial transaction you do, somebody's looking at.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, a lot of people are opting out. I think that the most bullish piece of data that I saw the entire year was the Charles Schwab report based on what millennials are investing in, and it showed that from 21 to 36-year-old, more of them are investing in the Bitcoin Trust than in Disney or in Netflix.
Of course.
And that's just the Bitcoin Trust. Imagine Bitcoin as well, which isn't even tracked in that. Right? That's a top 10 holding is Bitcoin across millennials.
You have to remember that they're not there for censorship resistance. People are learning what.
Yeah, they're there for the investment carry. Yeah.
Yeah, they're there because they're learning what money is, right? And I would argue that Bitcoin's larger value proposition, right? I've said this before. Bitcoin will do more to solve wealth inequality than all philanthropy combined. Why? Because the number one driver of wealth inequality is inflation. How do you fix inflation? You have to break the system. How do you break the system? You redesign it. Bitcoin does that. You can spend a bunch of money donating and doing all this stuff. You can't fix wealth inequality unless you fix the structure that steals the wealth from half the country, right? And so what has happened since QE, et cetera? Wealth inequality gap has absolutely exploded. And it's because inflation literally steals the wealth from those who keep their assets in cash. And so when you start to look at it that way, it's like, I would argue that, yes, Bitcoin's from a usage standpoint, sure, censorship resistance is one, is very important. Right? She's dead on in that sense. But just as a savings technology, it's going to have a bigger impact in preventing inflation from stealing people's wealth than anything else. So, like, how do you quantify this stuff? Again, like, that's where I go to. You can't make it black and white, right? And even from a privacy standpoint, like, you can actually use Bitcoin and not be private, or you can use it and be private. So how do you put it in a box? You can't. And so I think it's like there's so much like intellectual Olympics going on. And that's why, again, I go back like, who cares what my opinion is? The market has determined it's the most valuable one by like a landslide. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
I don't either.